Hi everyone, I'm Catherine, the artist behind Bigelow Fine Arts. Last week I finished the buildings on this candles page from World Within Worlds. How did your coloring go? If you are just tuning in, I'll be working on the wax at the top of the candles next. If you are enjoying this video, you can watch the previous videos in the playlist linked above. The coloring should be interesting given the unique shapes and the changing light source for each candle, so grab your pencils and follow along with me. I'm going to begin blocking in a few of the shadows with the burnt sienna. Shadows are definitely a little easier to see once they are blocked in, but the surface has a lot of undulations to be aware of. To begin the shadows, I'm going to add in a light layer of burnt sienna over all the hashed in areas before coming in and adding in a light layer of the cream over everything. The cream works the same way as the dark chrome did on the buildings, filling in the area with the first layer. I'm going to come in with the terracotta to begin bringing the highlights and shadowed areas together. I'm keeping everything light for now as I try to get a feel for where I think shadows are going to go, how dark I will need to make them, as well as what color I ultimately want the candles to be. I certainly don't want the wax to be the exact same color as the buildings, even though I am using many of the same colors. By using so many similar colors, I am tying the candle to the building, or the building to the candle. I'm now going to come in with the buff titanium to really block off my highlights. The luminance feels like a softer pencil and lays down a thicker layer. I'm not a huge fan of them. Having used both, I think I prefer the harder pencil as it is easier to build up many light layers. Maybe I'm just using too heavy a hand with them. Once I have the highlights protected with the luminance, I now have a better feel for how my shadows look even though they are not dark enough. I'm going to go through and tint some of my shadows with the orange glaze before coming in with the burnt sienna to begin making them dark enough to show up as actual shadows and not just little dirty patches. At the bottom of the drips, I'm trying to show that the drip is round with the bottom part darker but slightly feathering up into the lighter section. I'm going to try to do that at many points along the drips, as most of the drips will have a rounded shape not unlike the columns. So I'll have a shadow to one side with a highlight along an edge. I'm using the cream to tint the buff titanium to prevent the highlights from being too bright. The warm gray 6 is used in the darkest sections to really help get the shadow as dark as I feel it should be. The orange glaze brings the orange into the warm gray to prevent it from standing out too much. My colors are now blocked in at this point, so I'm really just going through with each color and darkening everything up, adding in layers and refining. The left part of the candle will be darker than the rest since it is receiving the least amount of light from the other candles. I'm trying to not make the shadow too abrupt. I want the left side to be darker, but to blend into the center part a little. I brought in a little magenta to darken up the shadows. This works well with orange, but I don't think I want to use too much of it, as I don't want the candles to look pink or purple. Looking back over in hindsight, I realized the magenta didn't work very well with the wax. Once I think I have the candle where I want it, I'm going to begin working on the second candle. I'll go in and block in the shadows lightly with the burnt sienna and cover everything with the cream to give it a hint of that pale yellow. The buff titanium helps to lock in the highlights, working as a little bit of a resist to adding more colors on top. If you don't have the buff titanium in luminance, you can skip this step. Just add more cream. Or you could add more cream mixed with white. By adding in the buff titanium as a resist, it works more as a reminder to not go too dark on the highlight area. Interestingly, when I looked at pictures of candles, the center pooled section is shaded by the flame itself and is darker, so I went in and made sure that the area containing the wick is darker. It also explains why the artist had the center section shaded off. The center candle has light coming from both sides, so I left each side brighter, but did add a shadow to the center portion of the wax. I likely could have left it, but I wanted to see how it would look. I might go back at the end and either lighten it up a little, or try to blend it better into the lighter section on each side. The final candle will have all of the highlights on the left side and will work up the same as the other two candles. Having so many of the shadows already put in place by the artist helps make it easier to see how the wax is shaped as it is dripping out of the center. The right side of the candle will also be darkest as it is not receiving much light from the other candles. The top part of the candles are now blocked in, so my next video I'm going to turn my attention to the wax along the sides of the buildings as well as any pooled around the base. Let me know how your coloring is going and if you've been following along. If you have any questions or page requests, please leave them below or on the Patreon post linking this video. I put in a list of chapter breaks in the show notes as well as a list of equipment I have or will be using. And thank you everyone for coming along and joining in with me on this coloring journey. I appreciate all my new subscribers as well as all my existing subscribers and look forward to more of you joining in and coloring along with me. That will only happen if you like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, happy coloring!